As a professional deep-sea salvage diver with over 15 years of experience exploring the darkest trenches of the Atlantic Ocean, I thought I had seen every terrifying thing the water could hide, until my crew's sonar radar picked up a massive, unidentified military submarine that had been sitting completely silent at the bottom of a jagged, underwater canyon since the height of the Cold War. The heavy titanium diving bell lowered me down into the crushing, pitch-black abyss where the water pressure was enough to instantly flatten a human body. And when my powerful external searchlights finally cut through the murky black current, they illuminated the colossal, rusted hull of the submarine, which was covered in thick layers of pale, dead deep-sea barnacles. With my thick umbilical oxygen cable trailing behind me, I slowly swam through a ruptured steel hull and entered the claustrophobic command deck of the sunken vessel, where the freezing water inside was completely stagnant and filled with floating, ghostly remnants of old naval uniforms. But what made my heart immediately race in panic was the fact that every single emergency bulkhead door had been violently buckled outward from the inside. I carefully pushed deeper into the dark, narrow corridors toward the main engine room, while the metallic groaning of the submarines, HULL, echoed through the water like a dying animal, until my helmet microphone suddenly began to pick up a bizarre, rhythmic static frequency that slowly transformed into a low, vibrating human heartbeat. I pointed my heavy underwater flashlight down the vertical maintenance shaft, and as the bright beam penetrated the murky green water below, I froze in absolute, paralyzing horror, because the entire bottom chamber was filled with a massive, pulsating mass of smooth, pale flesh that had completely fused with the ship's machinery, possessing dozens of oversized, human-like lungs that were slowly inhaling and exhaling the black ocean water. Before I could even scream into my radio to be pulled up, the pulsating flesh mass violently expanded, and thousands of milky white human eyes snapped open across its entire surface, staring directly into my flashlight beam with a terrifying ancient intelligence, while a deep, mechanical roar began to rip through the metal walls of the submarine, using the absolute last pocket of air in my emergency tank after the shock wave snapped my main oxygen line. I blindly clawed my way back through the jagged steel breach and swam toward the dim emergency lights of my diving bell, looking back one final time into the black abyss, only to see two gargantuan, glowing green eyes opening within the submarine's hull, watching me escape into the upper world. Working the graveyard shift at a lonely, isolated corporate fast food franchise branch located right off a desolate stretch of Interstate 95 was always incredibly boring, but the extra money helped me fund my long-term personal investments, so I usually didn't mind the complete lack of customers during the freezing, quiet hours between 2 and 4 in the morning. During a particularly foggy Tuesday night, the heavy glass entrance doors suddenly rattled violently as the power grid in the entire valley flickered and died, plunging the commercial kitchen into an oppressive darkness, while the backup generators kicked in with a low, mechanical hum that barely illuminated the empty drive-through lane outside. As I was trying to reset the main cash registers, the old intercom headset wrapped around my ears suddenly burst to life with a loud, agonizing burst of static electricity, followed by the terrifying sound of a wet, ragged breathing that felt as if someone was standing directly behind me in the dark kitchen. I sprinted toward the drive-through window and peered through the thick security glass into the dense, rolling fog, watching in absolute paralysis as a towering, unnaturally thin silhouette with elongated arms began to crawl out from the dark pine trees, dragging its twisted body across the asphalt directly toward my service window. Panicking, I grabbed my phone to call for emergency help, but the digital screen immediately glitched out and showed nothing but a distorted video feed of the kitchen's walk-in freezer, where a giant, faceless shadow entity was already standing amidst the hanging frozen meat, turning its hollow head toward the camera as if it knew I was watching. The heavy metal freezer door behind me suddenly slammed open with a deafening crash, releasing a thick cloud of sub-zero mist into the kitchen, while the low, distorted whispers of 1,000 dying voices began to echo from the dark ice room, forcing me to abandon my post and run blindly out into the foggy night, leaving the franchise behind forever. It was late on Halloween night when I decided to take a shortcut through the dark, overgrown cornfields behind the old suburban neighborhood, completely ignoring the local police broadcasts warning everyone about a deeply disturbed, violent psychotic escapee who was reportedly roaming the county in a grotesque, filthy carnival clown suit. The cold autumn wind rustled the dry corn husks around me, creating a wall of static noise that made it almost impossible to hear anything else, until a sharp, metallic ripping sound suddenly echoed through the darkness just a few feet away, followed by the terrifying, deafening roar of a heavy gasoline chainsaw sputtering to life in the shadows. I froze instantly as the thick smell of cheap grease paint, gasoline, and rotten iron filled the crisp night air. And when I turned my flashlight beam toward the sound, the light illuminated a towering, muscular figure wearing a blood-splattered clown mask with a wide, painted razor-sharp grin and hollow, dead black eyes staring directly into my soul. Without warning, the killer clown raised the revving, smoking chainsaw high above his head and let out a high-pitched, manic laugh that rang through the empty fields, stepping forward with an impossible speed while the spinning metal blades cut through the thick stalks of corn like paper to get to me. I dropped my flashlight and sprinted blindly through the dirt, my heart hammering against my ribs as the deafening, mechanical roar of the chainsaw grew closer and closer behind my back. The heat of the exhaust and the flying debris sprang violently against the back of my jacket. I tripped over a hidden tree root and crashed hard onto the cold ground, turning around in pure panic, just in time to see the towering monster stepping out of the shadows right above me, the glowing blade of the chainsaw dripping with dark fluid and coming down directly toward my chest.